Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the oleander shrub because at the moment they're all flowering. Now I have different varieties. I have this color, and at the back I have a pink one, and I also have a dwarf one. Now the beautiful thing about these ornamental shrubs is that they add color, and they do grow very large, and as you see as I release it, is that they do spread their wings, and so they're great for hedges, and especially also when you do cluster them together and do mass planting, they are very dramatic, and you can also grow it in containers as I have done. Come and see my dwarf one. With the oleander is you do get the tall variety and you do get the dwarf variety, and this one has a coral flower, the color, and I just think is that it's great to have these dwarf varieties in containers. So I have actually put this one here because I just feel with all these colors and suddenly you get this beautiful coral color, it'll just elevate my garden. So my name is Alice and I'm the Red Soul Gardener. Let's learn how to propagate our dear lovely oleander plant. So now when we look at the oleander shrub, it is, as I mentioned before, it is very beautiful, and it's all about the flower because they have these beautiful star-shaped flowers, and then the leaves do have these lance-shaped, very long and dark green, evergreen. Now the thing about this plant, it is highly poisonous. The flowers are poisonous, the leaves are poisonous, the seeds are poisonous. So do try to have them at the back and keep it away from small children and from pets. Because with children, maybe they'd like to play with the flower, but it is quite poisonous. And because of that, I will wear my gloves. Now, what sort of light requirement do they need? Now, for example, a lot of these oleanders, you do find them in these lovely Mediterranean countries, and you see these spread of color. Now, the thing about oleanders, why they do survive in these lovely Mediterranean countries, is because it likes full sun. However, you can have it in partial sun, and once you do have it in partial sun, it will flower, but you won't get that many bloom as you would get in full sun. What sort of soil requirements do you need? Now, the thing is again, as we all know, is that you need a well-draining soil. Now, the thing about oleanders is that if you do overwater them, or in an area, or you have a soil that is very compact and retains and gets waterlogged, what will happen is that you will get root rot. So in a situation where you get a compact clay with bad drainage, do add in a bit more compost so you can get that drainage happening. Otherwise, as I said, root rot and your leaves will turn yellow. What is the water requirement? Once you do have your seedling of oleander, is do water it. As I said, you have to have it moist and not soggy. But once it does take off, is that what happens is that it does become drought tolerant, and so as the plant does get over and it settles down, do have a spacing between the watering your plant. Give it about a week and then you water again. And as I mentioned, is that overwatering does cause root rot. What is the blooming season? Basically, in warmer climates, is that you will get the oleander shrub flowering the whole year, because once you do have that heat, they just produce their blooms. However, in colder climates, I would actually recommend in areas where you do have like frost in the cold season is I would recommend you to actually grow your oleander in a pot. And then once again, as the temperature starts dropping, you can bring it in. However, if you do have not severe frost, you can leave them outside and it may damage your leaves, but that shouldn't be a problem. You just snip that off. You may ask, when is the best time that you can carry out a propagation? Propagation should be done in spring when you're starting to get all these new shoots coming out, and in fall after the blooming season. Now, what sort of propagation can you do with the oleander? You can go and collect the seeds because you do get a seed pod, but that is a lengthy process. Now, the quickest way to do a propagation with the oleander is to do a water propagation, or you do a soil propagation, because that happens really fast. So with my gloves on, let me show you what I did. Is in the morning, I went off and collected my oleander plant. And what it is that I got about 4 inches of the stem. And it's always good to get a young stem, as in here, because if you do get an older stem, they do get a bit woody, and it does, the chances of failure is quite high. So I just went in and collected my stems. Now, basically what you do is that once you do collect your stem, as we know with propagation, do remove the flower, as we're doing here. Just remove the flowers and make sure you have your gloves on. And then with these little shoots, I'm just going to cut them off like that. Again, I'm just going to get rid of the bloom because we don't want the energy to go into production of flowers and go into seed production. And so I'm left with a stem like that. And then again, I will leave these leaves for photosynthesis to feed this shoot, and maybe just snip this one off here. So what you do is make sure your nodes, which are here where you get the leaf coming from, make sure you submerge it. So what you do, this is actually quite moist and it's not soggy. I will just simply press it completely down. And that is one plant. And then with this other plant, again, I go 2 nodes down. I just simply put it in the soil like that. And then within at least, let's say 2-3 months, you will have sufficient rooting. And then you'd separate this and put it into a larger pot, and gradually start introducing it in the garden once it's nice and full. Now, the other method, which I found very interesting and quite fast and very successful, is a water propagation. So let me put this aside. Now, what had happened is I got my oleander. And I do love my greenery in my kitchen. So I got my oleander and I just put it in water, and that's my rooting. Very nice rooting, very strong, and it did happen very fast. So with this one, what I would do is once I get sufficient rooting, I would simply get my soil and just simply place it. Let me just go here. And I'll take that and just simply place it in here like that. Make sure it's covered. I'm just going to put a drop of water because though I did prepare the soil, but the water didn't go in, and I will just very light water. So here we have a water propagation which is ready for introducing it to the soil. And here we have a soil propagation which will start rooting in the next 2-3 months. I should have sufficient rooting to actually introduce it into a bigger pot. And again, what I did, just to show you, is that these are from the dwarf variety. And again, I did put them in water. And again, I have sufficient rooting here. And I can either, with these ones, just move it into a bigger pot and then slowly plant it in the garden, and they will take off. So now what do you do with the oleander plant is that basically, as I mentioned, is that they do spread their wings. And if you do have your plant, for example, in partial sun, it's not going to flower that much. But at the same time, if you do have it in a shaded area, it's going to grow very lanky. So you may have to actually stake it up. Now, the other thing is that if you're going to get it, if your oleander, you want it to get bushier, as we mentioned before, is you do the pinching technique, which is going to the top of your plant, as in here, the stem, and all you do is just nip that top bit, just like that. And then what happens is that the plant will just send a message to its nodes, and you will get a bushier plant. So if you do have an oleander that actually you want to get it more blooms, is deadheaded, just cut off the spent flower, and what happens is the plant will again regenerate and produce more flowers. Now, with overwintering, as I mentioned, is that if you're in countries that you do get freezing temperatures, it's a good idea to actually have them in a container. Now, what happens is that when you do get into an overwinter situation, and we know that the oleander does get quite bushy, do cut it down to about 1/3, and it just makes the storage easier, and then take it to your basement, a frost-free environment, and then you water it sparingly, and in spring it will actually bloom up. So fellow gardeners, so now you know how to deal with an oleander plant, and they're beautiful plants, and I do recommend to have it in your garden, or just have it in a container, as I did, in a pot. They're very easy to manage. Also, I'd love to thank you, all of you, my subscribers, people who follow me, for all the encouragement that you've given me. It just makes me feel amazing. Get up and actually look for plants so I can share them with you. And don't forget to like and share also, and subscribe to our channel, and do tell your family members, your friends about the channel. Do place your comments, lovely comments. I love them, and they do give me a lot of encouragement. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. You'd always find us there, Red Soul Gardener. And thank you so much, and have a lovely day. And do get yourself an oleander plant, because they flower all the year around. And if you do have them in a container, they look stunning, and you can move them around your garden. Thank you. Bye.